If someone has recently become distant after showing strong interest, don't skip this video, because what you're about to discover may completely change how you interpret their behavior. The signs you're reading as rejection could actually be revealing a much deeper psychological struggle. Most people believe that attraction naturally leads to closeness. They assume that when two people enjoy each other's company, feel a strong connection, and share meaningful moments together, the relationship will continue to grow stronger. But human psychology is rarely that simple. In fact, one of the strangest and most misunderstood experiences in relationships occurs when someone begins to pull away at the exact moment their feelings become deeper and more genuine. To understand why this happens, we must first understand the difference between attraction and vulnerability. In the early stages of a connection, attraction often feels exciting, effortless, and safe. There is curiosity, anticipation, and the thrill of discovering another person. At this stage, emotions are usually manageable because very little is truly at stake. A person can enjoy conversations, think about the other individual constantly, and even imagine a future together without feeling overwhelmed. The connection exists largely in the realm of possibility. It is exciting precisely because it remains somewhat uncertain. However, as time passes, something important begins to change. The connection starts moving beyond attraction and enters a much deeper emotional territory. What was once a pleasant possibility slowly becomes something real. The other person is no longer just someone interesting or attractive. They become someone whose presence matters. Their opinions matter. Their attention matters. Their acceptance matters. And this is where vulnerability begins. Vulnerability is not simply opening up emotionally. It is the realization that another person now has the power to affect your emotional world. When feelings become genuine, the risk of loss suddenly becomes real as well. A person may begin to wonder what would happen if the relationship failed, if they were rejected, or if the connection disappeared. These thoughts often emerge beneath conscious awareness, influencing behavior in ways that may seem confusing from the outside. The deeper the feelings become, the more emotionally exposed a person feels. This exposure can create a surprising amount of anxiety. For some individuals, closeness feels unfamiliar because they have spent much of their lives protecting themselves from emotional pain. They may have learned to rely on independence, emotional distance, or self-protection as ways of staying safe. As long as a relationship remains casual, these defenses stay quiet. But when real emotional attachment develops, those defenses can suddenly become activated. This is why someone who appeared confident and interested may begin acting differently once the connection becomes meaningful. They may take longer to respond, become less expressive, or create emotional distance without fully understanding why. From the outside, it may look as though they are losing interest. Internally, however, they may be struggling with the uncomfortable reality that they now care more than they intended to. The relationship has moved beyond attraction and entered the territory of emotional risk. What appears to be withdrawal is often the beginning of an internal conflict. Part of them wants the connection to continue growing, while another part fears the vulnerability that comes with genuine emotional investment. And it is within this tension that the deeper psychological forces behind their behavior begin to reveal themselves. As emotional connection deepens, something remarkable begins to happen beneath the surface of the human mind. In the beginning, people often present the parts of themselves they feel comfortable sharing. They reveal their strengths, their achievements, their humor, and the qualities they believe will make them attractive to others. This process happens naturally and is not necessarily dishonest. It is simply how most individuals navigate new relationships. Yet as feelings become stronger, maintaining this carefully managed image becomes increasingly difficult. The closer someone feels to another person, the more they sense that they are being truly seen. Being seen goes far beyond physical appearance or personality traits. It involves the feeling that another person is beginning to recognize parts of you that are usually hidden from the world. These hidden aspects may include fears, insecurities, doubts, emotional wounds, and vulnerabilities that have been buried for years. While many people long for deep connection, they often underestimate how uncomfortable it can feel when someone starts seeing beyond the surface. For some individuals, this experience creates a profound sense of emotional exposure. They may suddenly become aware of weaknesses they have spent years trying to conceal. The connection starts to feel less like a pleasant interaction and more like a mirror reflecting aspects of themselves they would rather avoid. The other person has done nothing wrong. In fact, they may be offering acceptance, care, and understanding. Yet the growing intimacy triggers discomfort because it challenges the protective image that has been carefully maintained for so long. Many people spend a significant portion of their lives building emotional defenses. These defenses help them function, avoid pain, and maintain a sense of control. Some learn to appear strong at all times. Others become independent to the point that they rarely ask for support. Some hide their fears behind confidence, while others mask their insecurities with perfectionism. These protective strategies often work well until a meaningful relationship begins to develop. Then the walls that once provided safety begin to feel fragile. As a result, a person may start pulling away not because they dislike the connection, but because the connection is becoming too revealing. They sense that the other person is beginning to understand them on a deeper level. They feel emotionally exposed in ways they are not accustomed to experiencing. This can create anxiety, uncertainty, and a strong desire to regain control over their emotional world. What makes this process even more confusing is that it often happens unconsciously. The individual may not realize that they are afraid of being seen. They may convince themselves that they need space, that something feels off, or that they are suddenly unsure about the relationship. These explanations feel real because the underlying fear remains hidden from awareness. Yet beneath all of these rationalizations lies a simple psychological truth. Genuine intimacy requires authenticity, and authenticity can feel terrifying to someone who has spent years protecting their inner world. The closer another person gets to their true self, the harder it becomes to hide behind old defenses. And once those defenses begin to weaken, something even deeper starts to emerge from beneath the surface. Old emotional wounds that have never been fully healed. When a relationship begins to move beyond attraction and emotional walls start to come down, another powerful psychological process often emerges. Beneath the surface of everyday awareness, every person carries emotional experiences from the past. Some memories are easy to recognize, while others remain hidden, quietly influencing thoughts, feelings, and behavior. These unresolved experiences do not simply disappear with time. Instead, they remain stored within the mind, waiting for circumstances that resemble the situations in which they were originally formed. Deep emotional connection is one of the most common triggers for bringing these hidden wounds back to life. At first, a person may feel excited by the growing bond. They enjoy the conversations, the emotional closeness, and the feeling of being understood. But as attachment becomes stronger, the relationship begins touching parts of their inner world that have remained dormant for years. Without realizing it, they may start reliving emotional patterns connected to previous experiences of rejection, abandonment, betrayal, disappointment, or loss. This does not mean they are consciously thinking about the past every moment. In many cases, they are not aware of what is happening at all. They only notice a growing sense of discomfort that seems difficult to explain. The connection that once felt exciting suddenly feels overwhelming. The possibility of love becomes intertwined with the possibility of pain. The deeper they care, the more vulnerable they become to being hurt again. For example, someone who experienced abandonment earlier in life may unconsciously fear that every close relationship will eventually end the same way. Even if their current connection is healthy and supportive, their emotional system may remain alert for signs of danger. Small misunderstandings, temporary distance, or moments of uncertainty can trigger reactions that seem far greater than the situation itself. What they are responding to is not only the present moment, but also the emotional residue of past experiences. Similarly, a person who has been deeply betrayed may struggle to trust fully, even when trust has been earned. Part of them wants closeness, yet another part remains cautious. They may find themselves questioning the relationship, doubting the other person's intentions, or creating emotional distance whenever intimacy increases. These behaviors are often attempts to protect themselves from pain they never completely processed. What makes these wounds particularly powerful is that they operate beneath conscious awareness. The individual may genuinely believe they are reacting to present circumstances, when in reality, old emotional patterns are shaping their perceptions. Their fears feel real because the emotions attached to those past experiences were real. The mind does not always distinguish between a threat that exists now and a threat that existed years ago. As these unresolved wounds awaken, the person often experiences a growing internal struggle. They want the connection, but they also want safety. They desire intimacy, yet they fear what intimacy might cost them. The relationship becomes a battlefield between hope and fear, trust and self-protection, longing and resistance. And it is within this conflict that one of the most powerful psychological battles begins to unfold. A battle between the desire for love and the instinct to protect oneself from emotional harm. Once old emotional wounds have been activated, a powerful inner conflict begins to take shape. On one side is the desire for connection, the natural human longing to be understood, accepted, loved, and emotionally close to another person. On the other side is the instinct for self-protection, the part of the mind that exists to prevent pain, disappointment, rejection, and emotional loss. These two forces often pull in opposite directions, creating a psychological struggle that can be both confusing and exhausting. At this stage, a person may genuinely want the relationship to grow. They may think about the other person constantly, miss them when they are absent, and imagine a future together. Their feelings may be stronger than ever before, yet at the same time, those growing emotions can trigger fear. The closer they become, the more they have to lose. What once felt exciting now carries emotional weight. The connection matters, and because it matters, it feels risky. This is where many people become trapped between two competing needs. One part of them wants intimacy and closeness. Another part wants safety and control. The desire for love encourages them to move forward, while the desire for protection urges them to slow down, withdraw, or create distance. Neither side is completely wrong. Both are attempting to meet important emotional needs. The problem is that these needs often conflict with each other. As a result, their behavior may appear inconsistent. One day they seem deeply engaged, affectionate, and emotionally available. The next day they become distant, quiet, or difficult to read. This sudden shift often confuses the other person, who may assume that interest is fading. In reality, the inconsistency is frequently a reflection of the internal battle taking place beneath the surface. The stronger the emotional connection becomes, the stronger this conflict can feel. Genuine intimacy requires surrendering a certain amount of control. It requires trust, openness, and the willingness to be vulnerable despite uncertainty. For someone whose mind has learned to associate vulnerability with pain, this can feel incredibly threatening. Their protective instincts begin searching for ways to reduce emotional risk. Sometimes this appears as emotional withdrawal. Sometimes it appears as overthinking, doubt, or a sudden focus on the relationship's flaws. They may convince themselves that something is wrong, that the timing is bad, or that they need more space. While these concerns may feel legitimate, they often serve another purpose, creating enough distance to reduce the anxiety that intimacy is producing. What makes this struggle particularly painful is that both sides are driven by powerful emotions. The part seeking connection is motivated by hope, affection, and longing. The part seeking protection is motivated by fear and self-preservation. Neither side easily wins. The individual may find themselves moving back and forth between closeness and distance, unable to fully commit or fully let go. This psychological tug-of-war can continue for weeks, months, or even longer. Yet eventually the tension becomes impossible to ignore. The distance they create forces them to confront an important question. What do these feelings truly mean? And it is often during that period of separation that the deepest truths about their emotions begin to reveal themselves. When someone creates distance after a deep emotional connection has formed, most people immediately assume the worst. They interpret the withdrawal as proof that the feelings were never genuine, that interest has disappeared, or that the relationship no longer matters. While this can sometimes be true, human psychology is often far more complicated. In many cases, distance does not eliminate emotions. Instead, it removes the distractions that once kept those emotions hidden. When two people are constantly communicating, spending time together, or sharing emotional experiences, it is possible to avoid fully examining what the connection truly means. Daily interaction creates momentum. Feelings are experienced in real time, and there is little opportunity to step back and reflect. But when distance enters the picture, everything changes. The absence of the other person creates space for deeper awareness. What was previously felt only in moments of closeness now becomes impossible to ignore, without the constant presence of the relationship. A person is left alone with their thoughts. The conversations replay in their mind. Shared memories return unexpectedly. Certain places, songs, or routines trigger reminders of the connection. They begin noticing the emotional impact the other person had on their daily life. Sometimes they discover that the feelings they were trying to escape have actually become stronger in the silence. Distance has a unique way of revealing emotional truth because it removes the comfort of avoidance. When someone is overwhelmed by vulnerability, fear, or uncertainty, pulling away may initially feel like relief. They believe that creating space will reduce the emotional pressure they have been experiencing. Yet once the distance is established, many realize that the emotions did not disappear with the relationship's absence. The connection continues to exist within them. For some individuals, this realization becomes a turning point. They begin to understand that what they felt was deeper than attraction or temporary excitement. They recognize how much the other person contributed to their emotional world. The distance forces them to confront feelings they previously avoided. In some cases, this awareness inspires growth, self-reflection, and a willingness to return with greater emotional clarity. However, distance can also expose fears that remain unresolved. A person may realize that their feelings are genuine while simultaneously recognizing that they are not ready to face the vulnerability those feelings require. They may continue struggling with trust, fear of rejection, fear of loss, or deeply rooted emotional patterns. The truth becomes clear, but the ability to act on that truth may still be limited by their internal barriers. This is why distance should never be interpreted too quickly. It can mean many different things, depending on the emotional maturity, self-awareness, and psychological history of the individual involved. What appears on the surface as indifference may actually be confusion. What looks like emotional detachment may conceal powerful feelings that have not yet been fully understood. In the end, distance often functions as a mirror. It forces people to face what they truly feel when there is nothing left to distract them from themselves. And sometimes it is only in that silence that the depth of a connection becomes impossible to deny. When feelings remain shallow, connection feels simple, but when emotions become genuine, the unconscious begins to speak. Hidden fears emerge, old wounds awaken, the desire for love collides with the need for protection. This is why some people pull away precisely when they seem to care the most. Their distance is not always a sign that they feel less. It can be a sign that they feel more than they know how to handle. Because sometimes the greatest threat to a guarded heart is not rejection. It's the possibility of being truly loved. Thank you for watching until the end. If this message helped you understand relationships and human behavior on a deeper level, be sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps this community continue growing. Until next time, keep exploring the hidden truths of the human mind.